Hey guys, it's Shara from Woodshop Diaries, and let's build a hammock stand. So I'll go ahead and warn you that this video is a bit of a roller coaster because what realistically should have taken an hour, maybe an hour and a half to build, took me 5 days. Now part of that was your fault, but most of it was mine. Either way, I'll take you along for the journey and I'll show you how easy this was to build if you don't do what I did. This video was sponsored by Hodo. So I'll try not to drag this out, but I feel like I do need to set the scene and give you a little backstory before we dive too far in. If you're just here for the how-to, feel free to skip ahead, but I recently polled my Instagram audience and asked whether they would want to see a hammock stand, an outdoor bench, or an outdoor chair next. Overwhelmingly, the winner was a hammock stand, which I was pretty excited about because I had been wanting to build one myself. You may remember that several years ago I actually built a hammock stand, but we left it behind when we moved here. After that poll, a couple people private messaged me and asked if I would build a foldable hammock stand. And this is the part where it's kind of your fault, and I say that jokingly. I hope that you know that. I thought that was a pretty neat idea, although I didn't really want or need the foldable feature. I thought I could try to see what we could do with it. The original design that I had wanted wasn't foldable and it wasn't easily modified to be foldable, so I scrapped it and completely redesigned a foldable version, and then I had to go get different materials in order to make it. Long story short, I built it and I hated it. It just didn't really look how I wanted it to. It felt a little flimsy and it really wasn't all that easy to take apart to fold down or to put back together to set up. All in all, I just felt like it was more complicated than it was worth. I really don't build a lot of things for myself to keep, and I thought since this was finally something I was gonna build just for me, I really wanted to be 100% happy with it. So at this point, I was 3 days in, most of which had been spent trying to convince myself to love the foldable version. I had wasted multiple boards, and I had taken several trips to the hardware store, all to ultimately end up back where I started, with my original design. So I took this apart and started over from scratch. Well, kind of scratch. I was still trying to salvage as much of this material as I could. So now that I've kind of set the scene, let's knock this out because the build itself is actually really easy. I do wish I could say this was the only problem that I encountered, but it's not. We will get to another one shortly. So I built this hammock stand entirely from cedar 2x4s and 4x4s. I had already cut down these 4x4 posts for the foldable stand and I had mitered the ends of them 30 degrees. So I clamped them between two 2x4s and then I marked on a scrap piece of 2x4 how to cut my new supports. I have already detailed all of this in the building plans, so you don't have to figure anything. But this gave me a template to use to cut my new 4x4 pieces. The ends of these 4x4 supports are mitered 60 degrees. So my miter saw goes to 60 degrees, but if yours doesn't, you can cut this several ways. One easy way is to clamp a scrap board to the saw base, cut 45 degrees on each side. Then you can put the board in and adjust the miter to 15 degrees, which 45 plus 15 is 60, so that will give you a 60-degree miter. Of course, there are other ways to cut this as well. Great news. I had 2 of these from my original foldable hammock stand, and they had the holes in them. I really didn't want to have to fill these holes, so I was able to cut down one of these. I had 2 of these, one for each side. I was able to cut down one of these to make these 2 supports. And I was able to cut them in such a way that the holes are not visible. Now I just need to cut this one into these 2 pieces for the other side, and then I'll just cut 2 more of these supports. So I cut my existing posts into the smaller supports. Then I cut 2 new posts from another 4x4. All in all, this project required 2 4x4x8 posts, a 2x4x8 board, and 2 2x4x10 boards. And we'll discuss those 10-foot boards shortly. So the runners that I originally cut, I mitered the ends like this just for a little decorative touch. But for this design, I need these ends like square. So I'm gonna trim this off. Now that all my pieces were cut, I clamped them together to double check the distance between my posts to make sure that my hammock would fit. Then I needed to grab the hardware to put it together out of the back of my truck, or as I like to call it, the Lucy Mobile. I try to take my shop dog Lucy with me whenever I can while I run errands in town, but she often leaves my truck a mess. So I started keeping the Hodo Auto Care air duster and vacuum under the back seat. This compact tool is really handy to have in the back of the truck where little messes seem to be a daily occurrence. I would like to blame most of that on Lucy, but we all leave a bit of a mess around here if we're being honest. The Hodo air duster and vacuum comes with 5 different attachments and a handy storage bag to keep them all together. One end offers powerful suction while the other end offers a strong airflow, making it a versatile 4-in-1 design that can be used as a vacuum, an air duster, an inflator, or a pump. And while it's great for the truck, it's also great for around the home for cleaning up small everyday messes from, well, we won't point any fingers. And with Father's Day coming up, it's also a really great gift idea if your dad is as messy as mine. To use, simply add your desired attachment, power on, and then select your power setting. There's 1, 2, or boost for max power. To empty, simply pop open the dust cap and dump it, and then you can plug it back in to recharge so that it's ready for the next time that you need it. Check out the link in the video description to grab the Hodo Auto Care air duster and vacuum for your home, your car, or for the perfect Father's Day gift. I used these Timberlock screws for this project. I really like the black accents and I've used them on several past outdoor projects. But if you wanted, regular lag screws would work as well. This probably makes 0 difference, but I used a scrap piece of plywood to raise these supports up just a little so that when this is placed on the ground, the end grain won't be touching. I tried to reuse as many of the already drilled holes as I could in the runners, but where there wasn't already a hole, I made sure to pre-drill because these large screws can easily split or crack the wood. Also, please notice that I went to all the trouble to cut my supports so that the holes would be hidden, only to not notice that I screwed this piece in the wrong way. I just realized that I put the whole end up here. These holes are smaller, so I'm gonna leave those up here and put the big hole down here. Like, the whole purpose of that was to cover the hole, and then I didn't even pay attention that I put it in the right spot. Where the supports meet the post, I could have used some more of those Timberlock screws, but I was a little afraid of potential cracking, so I went with these smaller 3-inch long decking screws. I can always swap these out later if needed, but I'm just gonna try these first. I think they'll work fine. Then I repeated all of this for the other side the exact same way. Honestly, this was coming together awesome, and I was so happy with it, but that's about to change. Hang with me. The last part that I needed was 2 braces on each end to keep this from tipping over. So for this, I cut a 2x4 in half, centered it on each end, and then I added some screws to attach it to my 4x4 supports. At the time, I didn't screw this to the 2x4 runners, I just screwed this into the 4x4 posts. But later, I did end up coming back and adding 2 screws on each end into my 2x4 runners. I do think this helped a little with keeping it from twisting. Now I can move the stand to the floor and drill holes to install my eye bolts to hang the hammock from. So earlier, I mentioned that I measured the distance between my posts and it was about 108 inches long, which was the length of my 9-foot hammock. So the hammock stand that I built a few years back had a span of even less than this one, so I thought that this should work perfect. But I hung that hammock much higher off the ground than this one, so I found that this did, in fact, not work perfectly, and my butt hit the bottom frame. To say that I was frustrated would be an understatement. So I drove an hour one way to go buy 2 10-foot cedar 2x4s. That way I could make my stand longer. So I wasn't sure how much longer it needed to be, so me and Danny very scientifically measured how much further out the hammock needed to be to add an extra 8 inches of height, and I just guesstimated that it needed to be about 14 inches longer. So I cut my 10-foot 2x4s, replaced these runners, and then hoped for the best. Luckily, this worked, finally. And this 1-hour project that I built over the course of 5 days was finally finished. Except for the actual finish. I applied some Cabot Australian timber oil to add some color and add some protection, and once that was dry, I could finally relax and contemplate my life choices with a nice breeze in the backyard. Honestly, this project was packed with several great lessons that I'm glad that I learned. Like, trust your gut when it comes to design, and hammock stands are always better being too long than too short. Thanks so much for riding along with me on the struggle bus for this one. I know that it was a bit of a chaotic adventure, but we made it eventually. I'm hoping the next one goes much smoother, so be sure to subscribe to the channel for plenty more projects to come. In the meantime, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, happy building!